Capitalism could not survive in a culture dominated by mysticism and altruism.
The world is changing. The age of the consumer is over.
Stand up for freedom, no matter what the cost. It can help to save your soul and maybe your country.
Do you understand the forces shaping events in the world around you? Do you want to know the answers or just the issues? Do you know the secrets of prosperity economics? Live from Salt Lake City and at freecapitalist.com across the nation, you're listening to the free capitalist himself, Rick Kerber.
It's time to wake up and turn your brain on. It's Free Capitalist time tonight. Glad to see a lot of you jumping on here already. Hey, Dan. Hey, Kelly. I see our Idaho friends on. A lot of folks tuning in from there. So want to welcome. We're going to have a good broadcast tonight. Again, my goal, as has been consistent all week, is I'm working on getting this down into less than an hour. So somebody hold me to it. I might have to give myself a gold coin if I get us down to maybe 30 or 40 minutes. And at the end of the broadcast, hey, Kelly, at the end of the broadcast today, I want to do question and answers again. So if you've got questions, whether they're from yesterday, hey, Brandon, welcome from Colorado. Hey, Cheyenne. If you've got questions that we haven't got to yet, hey, Kath, and you want them answered tonight, I'm going to save some time. And you know, I noticed a lot of times after the broadcast, I go down and read through the comments, and I see that I've missed some questions. I see that some of you have asked questions that I haven't got to. So with that said, hey, Missouri, Sally, glad to have you. Hey, Abby, I knew that's what I meant by Idaho friends. Hi, Rebecca. So if I miss your question, just put it back up on top. Don't assume that I've skipped it, because I'll try to acknowledge every question that comes in. Hi, Rebecca. Good evening, Dave. Long time. We're getting to make a habit of this. You keep coming in every night. That's awesome. It's good to see your face. I see your little picture. I don't actually get to see your real face. Hey, Brad, I noticed a new feature. Kelly taught me a new feature today. Hey, Alma. And this is going to revolutionize these broadcasts, my friends. Hey, John. Facebook now allows me to bring you in on the Facebook call and participate in the broadcast. So if you remember back in the radio days, you'd have to call me up on the phone. Hey, Shirley. Hello. Glad to have you on board. Hope your brain is on. You all understand my humor today is a little bit amped up. I just spent a little bit of time with my friend Morgan, who had a good day in court today. I'll give you a little bit of an update there too. Hi, sweetheart. Hey, Michael, and hey, Sharon from Boise. So I'm in good spirits today. And hey, Nephi, I hope that comes across. I hope you're having a good day, and if not, be prepared for some scintillating brain-on activity here for the next little bit. And we'll have some fun together. And so please, again, I'll answer questions at the very end so that I can kind of not jump around all the time. And again, I'll try not to monologue for so long. But what I was saying is, hey, Bailey, and Petunia Black, come to get some education. All right. Well, that's what scintillating free capitalist conversation is all about. But the awesome feature I was trying to mention, and I was thinking of some of you, Facebook now allows me, if you're on an iOS device, which is an iPhone or an iPad, I can just swipe over and press your name and invite you to come on in, and it'll show your video right here on the screen. So we're going to try that tonight. Kelly, you get ready. I'm going to bring you in at some point. We're going to see if we can figure that out. And so, and some of you who want to be brought in, I'm going to be working on setting this up a little bit differently as we move forward, and we'll do this regularly, and we'll make this really fun. From the Oregon coast, Diane, welcome. It's iOS only right now, Brad. It's time for you to convert, brother. And yep, Kelly, you better. None of those weird computer animated features where you look like a mouse or a rabbit or whatever. We can't. The capitalist in me just can't endorse that. Hey, Rebecca, yeah, you could come on in your pajamas. I told Jewel, during my trial a couple weeks ago, Jewel was doing the regular updates. I'm going to have to bring her on. But it's really funny which videos got the most views because Jewel was just new to doing videos, and she built up quite a following. A lot of you were very kind, and a lot of you were very responsive to her, etc. And I noticed there were 2 videos of hers that got more views than any of the others. Number one is when she was outside in the dark. I don't know if people thought that was intriguing or whatnot. And the second one is when she wore her silk pajamas. And I said, sweetheart, we are capitalists. We should have realized that. You put a woman in silk pajamas on the Facebook late at night, and you're going to get more viewers. So I may have to have my wife dial in. And anyway, I don't want to cross any boundaries here, making anyone uncomfortable. I just thought that was funny or pleasant. She is amazing, Kelly. Thank you. So some of you may have noticed the title that I gave the broadcast tonight, and it's a little controversial, and I think it's about time we address the elephant in the room here. Why in the world is this guy who's helping out on the Bundy case, who helped out on the Bundy case up in Oregon, who's fought his own battle in the courts, who's talking about liberty all the time, why in the world does he call himself the free capitalist, and what does capitalism have to do with anything? Because I hate these corporate people who steal our liberty, and I hate the corporatists who are out there, corrupting our justice system, and the big business people that are ruining our world. So how in the world is this guy with the overlong beard, I can't even say that anymore now that I know John Lamb, how is this guy calling himself the capitalist, and why is that? As a matter of fact, I had some feedback today. Kelly has been doing some just Herculean efforts to help raise some money for the Bundy legal defense team down here. Morgan and I are working with all our might to do some good things down here, and Kelly has been just incredible in terms of helping us raise some money. And yes, capitalism is not corporatism. Gina, you're ready to do the show tonight. I might have to bring you on. I hope you're not in your pajamas. I'll just click on you and invite you right on in. That's exactly, well, that's at least a very significant piece of what we're going to talk about tonight. But anyway, what I was going to say to you is some people were saying, I don't know if I can donate to somebody. I don't know if I can send money to a legal defense team where there's a guy on there who calls himself a capitalist. And so I want to talk about that because I came across an interesting video, and I want to use that to illustrate a point in this fight, in this cause that we all are united in, this cause of liberty. And some of you will know better what I'm talking about because we've created some context over the last couple days here. And I really have appreciated getting to know some of you, interacting with you. Some of you have been sending me information, comments, etc. Hey, Michael, good to see you on here tonight. Hey, Dean, I agree with you. Kelly is amazing. Now, as you know, in the liberty movement, it is easy to get divided. And there are all these people who think they're the only ones who really know how to fight for liberty. And, of course, that's not true. And we talked the other night about once you ever find yourself up against the behemoth tyranny that's going on in our country in the name of well, not in the name of, but in the guise of government, but it's really overreaching government. Once you have faced that yourself, you start to feel camaraderie with anyone who has faced it, regardless of maybe different ideas or different opinions you have, because liberty is a uniting force. The title of the broadcast tonight is Socialism versus Capitalism, or Capitalism versus Socialism. Which one is more uniting? And you see the socialists fancy themselves as the uniters. And you don't have to... yeah, probably the real environmentalists, Bailey. But y'all too smart. Your brain is on. I can't pull anything over on you guys. That's awesome. But one of the things that... God dang it, Bailey, now you got me thinking about real environmentalism. I can't remember what I was saying. Hey, Jay, a long time no see. The socialists. Now, whether they call themselves socialists like Bernie lovers, or whether they, just consider themselves liberals or do-gooders or etc., they like to call themselves the uniters, the big tent people. And some of them, thank you, Jeff, and they accuse the people who love free enterprise, capitalism, and liberty as uniters. And we get into this battle of name-calling. Well, there are a lot of terms, and as some of you know, I don't like to use terms haphazardly, especially the ones I ascribe to myself. I like to describe them, etc. And capitalism, to me, and I'd be happy to explain this to anybody in more detail, is the philosophy of liberty. It is the doctrine of liberty. And it's not just economics. Matter of fact, economics is a small piece of capitalism. Capitalism is a philosophy of life. It is a philosophy of human interaction, human exchange. Ludwig von Mises wrote his magnum opus called Human Action. That capitalism is a philosophy of human action, a way of acting, and a way of creating value and exchanging value in society. Well, anyway, with that said, in our community, in the liberty community, and you don't see this any more ramped up than in a courtroom, where you get people who should be on the same side of an issue getting divided and scattered all over the place. Some people on the same time, etc. And I saw a video today on Facebook, and we're gonna do a little debate 101 with you. We're gonna have a little fun. Some of you might find this intriguing and exciting, and might invite 100 more friends if we do it again. And some of you might go, "Oh yeah, no, I just wanted the USA v. Bundy updates, and what are you doing?" So we'll see. I'm looking forward to your feedback. But some of you need to know, by way of my background, I was an academic debater all the way through high school. I went to college on a debate scholarship. At junior college, we won the National Debate Championship 2 years in a row. And then I was recruited and transferred down to a really nice, what I called rich kids school at the University of Denver. And I was on the debate team there. Then I did World Championship parliamentary debating. I enjoyed debating. Did policy debate, Lincoln Douglas debate, value debate. I love debating, and I had a lot of success, and it's made a huge difference in my life. I think it's one of the reasons why I'm good and have been successful at the law. I think it's a talent I've been blessed with and that I've refined and utilized over the year. Some of you play the piano, some of you argue well. So I'm constantly surprised at how easy it is to get people who love liberty to fly off in every different direction. And I want to work on uniting and building common ground and being better at explaining ourselves and at defending the principles of liberty. And one of the things I hear all the time is people use labels, and I saw this video on Facebook today, and it really got me worked up, because it is a classic example of sophistry and deception of someone trying to divide people in the liberty movement. And I talked yesterday about upping our game and being smart, and hey David, and advocating responsibly. And there's a phrase that means a lot to me. You'll hear me use it a lot. That we need to let those who look for goodness see goodness. And if we want to attract more people into the liberty movement, particularly young people, but even people in positions of power and influence, we have got to we have a responsibility. We have a stewardship to showcase liberty, if you will. Hey, Corey. And so one of the best ways to unite people is to help them intellectually get united. Because, if you're emotionally united with someone, that lasts about, 30 seconds or, one good date. But you have to build some compatibility with people you truly want to be invested in a cause with. And one way to do that is some intellectual exercise, some brain-on, scintillating, capitalist exercise. Interestingly enough, the root of the word capital is kaput, which means head. And I don't know if you knew that. And capitalism literally has to do with the stewardship we have over our own ideas and clinging to truth and holding on to truth and following after truth. That might surprise some people. I got into a big debate once with a professor about what capitalism was, and I think we took up like 200 blog pages and 800 comments, and the debate lasted forever, and I don't think I persuaded his mind, but we sure won a lot of his students over. Hi, Deloy. Hi, Twyla. I don't look as tired as I did tonight because we had a good day. Let's do this backwards. I've been saving the updates in USA v. Bundy in previous broadcasts for later. Let me just get this out of the way. I don't have a lot of great detail to go into today, except for to tell you today was a good day. The evidentiary hearing that has been going on in court is going to continue. There are going to be additional witnesses. The judge made some favorable rulings today to allow us to do that. And suffice to say, I think the prosecutors would have preferred a different outcome. And I think the defense attorneys all did a very good job over the last several days in this evidentiary hearing. I think Morgan Philpott did a very good job today. And others. Morgan's my brother, so I'm going to have to give him some kudos here. And he did. He predicted it. At lunchtime, he explained where he thought the judge was going to go on this issue. And I'm not going to go into those details, but I just want to tell you that evidentiary hearing is going well. And there's some good developments. Trial is still scheduled to begin on Monday with jury selection. And at that point, we'll be a lot more engaged in daily courtroom activity, witness activity, evidence activity. So I'm going to have to pass the baton off to others who are very capable, like John and Kelly, to give you updates while we get up to our elbows in the legal wrestling. And hey, Brand, good to see you. And so yeah, I'm not as tired today because it's a little refreshing to have a good day. Hi, Julie. Good to see you on here, and thank you, by the way. So I am a little tired, and my beard is still too a little shaggy, as my wife keeps reminding me. But this is what happens when you're on your own in the Free Capitalist Mobile Command Center. You forget to tidy up a little bit. So what is that movie Phenomenon with John Travolta where the gal comes over and has to give him a shave? I'm waiting for my wife to show up and come down and help give me a shave. Right, Kimball? We need that. Hey, Kimball, good to see you. Update-wise, like I say, trial is scheduled to start Monday with jury selection. And like I said, then I'll be passing the baton a little bit. But I still will do broadcasts. I will still continue to do these every night, but the blow-by-blow and the daily detail just not going to be possible from me. You have to get it from others. I'll do my best to chime in and make sure the community knows what is good and appropriate and helpful and all those things. But like I say, Kelly and John do a great job. How are the guys? I think the psychological stress, it wears on everybody right as you work up to trial. It gets increasingly tense. It is frustrating. I see it wearing on them. I did see some evidence today that the guys could see some good things happening, and I think that's good. And I think that you'll see that throughout this trial. I think this trial is going to be a little bit different than the other trials, just because obviously you've got Cliven and Ryan and Ammon as the defendants who are central figures. You're going to have witnesses that weren't in the other trials. And again, I'm not going to dive into the great details except for to tell you procedurally, it gets stressful as you ramp up to this time, but they're doing all right. I think we're ready for the battle. And it is a battle. And speaking of battles, let's transition here to the capitalism versus socialism battle of the night. I want to share something with you. There is this fella who... we're not starting over. Sorry, the free capitalist world just started over all of a sudden. Yeah, we love him too. Hi, Tom, from Colorado. I love Colorado. Hey, where in Colorado are you from? I got family up and down that green state. I went to school in Denver, as you know. I got families down in Colorado City. I got family all the way up in Loveland, Fort Collins, Greeley. I love Colorado. I just... and the Rocky Mountains kind of my stomping ground. So, but anyway, you've heard this term before. It's funny in modern day politics. There's a term now that 20 years ago it wasn't as used as pejoratively as it is now. But there's a term now called constitutional conservative. And I heard that term 20 years ago, but nowadays, it's Barb. Okay. Well, it says Tom Barbara Hewlett. Barbara. Tom Barbara. Sorry, I'm getting old. Where's my glasses? It says Tom Barbara Hewlett. So maybe it's Tom and Barbara. Okay. Well, hey, Barb. I see there's a picture of a couple there. All right. You're the more pleasant looking part of that picture on the right hand side, right? At least that's what people tell me when they see a picture of me and my wife. They're always like, okay, yeah, we'd rather... Okay, anyway. No more silk pajamas conversation, honey. Sorry. So I came across this. Hey, David. Mitch here. David Howard. You guys playing games with me. So anyway, this fella, long-bearded fella, came on, and he's trying to divide us, and he calls anyone who believes in the United States Constitution a constitutional conservative, which is just a misnomer, a bad. It's a bad description of people who love liberty, and it's a way to pigeonhole and divide. And that's what socialists do, by the way. If you study Karl Marx, you go back to Frederick Engels in 1847, and the letters and exchanges he was having with Karl Marx when they were developing their catechism. There's a publication now, you can find it on freecapitalist.com. They came up with a publication called The Principles of Communism. And they were breaking away from the main socialist body of intellectuals in Central Europe at the time and developing a more radical, willing to do anything philosophy to usher forth a proletariat revolution they called communism, Bolshevikism, essentially. And I could leave out the K and it would sound a lot more appropriate, right? Some of you will get that. Some of you will get that in the morning, and some of you will still not be smiling. But anyway, I told a joke in case you missed it. The socialists and the communists, Karl Marx, their whole philosophy is based on dividing people into classes. Now, they don't think they're doing the dividing because they believe it's necessary and natural that human beings are divided into classes. And the term class warfare is an instrumentality of socialism. And again, I don't want to get too academic here tonight and bore you all and put you to sleep. I know it's a little late, but socialism is not just a political term; it's a philosophy, and communism, which derives from that, and other forms of isms. Kelly, you're leaving in 10 minutes. I'm barely going to be done saying hello in 10 minutes. I'll have to bring somebody else on. They'll take your spot, and you would have combed your hair for nothing. Hey, David from Michigan, welcome. Now, so what happens is if you get caught unawares, you don't realize that there are people with a political agenda that are trying to divide us, and they're trying to identify what class we're in. The workers' class, for example. Workers of the world unite with socialism. And thanks, Brad. It is my superpower. Scintillating, intellectual, humorous. Yeah, absolutely. And bye, you're too slow. No, sorry, Shirley. Sorry. Good luck. In case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. So what happens is we sometimes end up fighting amongst ourselves, and we don't know why, and we get frustrated, and we don't feel like we have the ammunition to unite the people that we want to be united with in this movement, particularly young people nowadays. And so I want to go through this video. It's just a short 4-minute video, and I'm going to go through it step by step and break it down. We're going to do a little debate lessons 101 for you, maybe a little debate humor as well. But my goal here is to help you see what happens in modern political and social conversations, particularly in little 4-minute videos that scroll down your newsfeed here on Facebook, and talk about how to deal with this and how to turn this to your advantage in conversations and show people that liberty unites us, that capitalism, freedom, the philosophy of human liberty is what unites us. We can get past labels. Because these people that divide us are not authentic, and the way to beat them is to out-authenticate them. I agree with you, Gina. You're a pretty smart gal here. Under socialism, you made a comment about socialism, and it just went up. I missed it, but I agree with you. But listen to this fellow for a second. I'm going to turn the camera around, and we're going to just talk through this for a second, and I want to show you what people do. The premise of this guy's argument is that people who say we need to go back to what the founders wanted, or go back to the Constitution, he says that's not really an authentic position, because he's going to argue we need to divide the founders up, just like we need to divide people up. And he makes some arguments, and it's real sophistry, I'll tell you, and we'll expose it. And he tries to challenge those of us who believe that the founders weren't just lucky. And I want to show that to you, because the battleground for the intellectual part of this movement for liberty is the founders. You can go to the courtroom. I saw Gavin Seam today do a really good video on a battle he's having regarding a local government trying to get him to unlock his phone and give up the password. And he read about due process and the right not to incriminate yourself under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution and under his state constitution. And it becomes vernacular for some of us. We just say, well, Fifth Amendment, oh, First Amendment, oh, the Constitution says this, oh, the Constitution says that. Well, but what good is that if you don't understand even deeper than that? And again, this isn't going to be a deep, college class lecture, though I've given plenty of those. This is just a quick review, and I want to show you something. I want to do a little fun debating here and show you how to break down these nonsense arguments by liberals, by socialists. I'm actually a classical liberal. Liberal means someone who promotes freedom, but terms get abused all the time these days. Melanie Briscoe from Missouri. Where in Missouri, Melanie? I just drove through Missouri. I went from the east side of Missouri to the west side, to central, to the north and south. I have family from California, Missouri. I don't know if you know where that is. I remember driving for 2 hours in central Missouri. I learned two things that I never knew I'd learn. Number one, I had no idea how green Missouri was. That's from a guy from the Rocky Mountains his whole life. I felt like I was in the Amazon. Number two, I drove for like 2 hours without cell service, And I was starting to get a little nervous that I was going to come upon some lost civilization. I had no idea what Central Missouri was like. It was incredible. So, yes, they were working for the same thing. Twyla, let me show you that. But without further ado, let's get on to this. So I'm going to turn this camera around. Forgive me for a second. It's not me, right? This ugly bearded fellow, he's not nearly as suave, debonair, and handsome, quote Don Sills, as I am. But he's worth taking a little critical look at. So do you see this guy? I don't know if you guys have seen this video before, but it's circulating on Facebook right now called "What Did the Founders Really Want?" So let's just go through this and listen to his argument for a minute and break it down, and then apply it to us. And then I'm ultimately going to apply it to what we're doing here in our legal fight, and a lot of the support you all are giving us. Thank you, by the way. Thank you tremendously, those of you who've rallied your friends to support, etc. But I want to engage your brain for a minute. We're going to watch this guy, and we're going to have a fun little intellectual debate, okay? So I'm going to just play a little clip at a time.
That all America needs to do is return to the form of government that the founders intended. But the various founders intended so many different things that this is impossible. Here's the backstory that they need to learn. People often talk about the founders as if they were a single monolithic group, having the same goals, desires, and principles. But nothing could be further from the truth.
Okay, so that's hyperbole. In case you don't know what the word means, you might have used the word before, but nothing could be further from the truth than that these men were not united. What does he say again? Let me just back it up. Is this, again, you got to be aware when you hear people that are trying to argue against liberty here.
Further from the truth.
That's not
Take
right. Hold on.
the same goals, desires, and principles.
He said a lot of people argue that the founders had the same goals, desires, and principles, and nothing could be further from the truth. Okay, first of all, it's hyperbole. And what hyperbole means is you're making an exaggerated statement that is disconnected from reality. Now, that's my definition. You go look at Webster's, but mine's pretty good. But he's lying, okay? And I can prove it. And this is objectively so. There is plenty that is further from the truth than that. And in fact, I can prove to you that the men that we call the founders were united in their what is the little trilogy he says there? I just want to be specific.
A monolithic group having the same goals, desires, and principles.
Okay, goals. Let's just look at this. Goals, desires, and principles. I can prove to you that from the liberty movement's perspective, and I can show you this, it is objectively true, goals, desires, and principles, that the founders had those in common. But he tells you, and this is what, your 18-year-old or your 16-year-old who's watching this on Facebook, or you, late at night, you go, really? Wow. Okay, but he just used hyperbole to lie to you. Okay, and I'm going to show it to you, and I'll prove it to you. So let's just keep on going here. Yeah, you guys are smart. You guys are smart. All right.
But nothing could be further from the truth. Take Patrick Henry. He was a member of the First Continental Congress and advocated strongly for independence from Great Britain. Most Americans know him from his speech in 1775 when he famously proclaimed, "Give me liberty or give me death." Would he be considered a founding father?
Yes, he would be considered a founding father, and he did become famous for his "Give me liberty and give me death" speech, and he did inspire great men also, who we now also call founders, and he did advocate for revolution. So he's setting up a straw man here, by the way. He's telling you a bunch of true things, so now he can tell you a false thing or imply a false thing. Watch this.
What about Samuel Adams, who led the Sons of Liberty in the Boston Tea Party? He later signed the Declaration of Independence alongside 53 other men who pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor in support of American independence from Great Britain.
Okay, pause. Yes, so Samuel Adams. Yes, Samuel Adams is someone we would call a founder. But see, I'll tell you something. He's insulting us, by the way. And again, this is sophistry. Because he tells you a series of true things to imply a false thing. And you'll see with a false thing in just a minute. But think about this. For example, he said that these 57 men who signed the Declaration of Independence, and And he just passes it all on. Now hold on a minute. He quotes the rhetoric at the, and it's more than rhetoric, but it is rhetorical at the end of the Declaration of Independence. We pledge our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Let me ask you this: if you and I, as human beings, have our own free will, choice, and volition, value, judgments, etc., it is quite likely we have differences, right? But if you and I were to sign a document, both of us sign the same document, and pledge in support of that document our life, is there anything more you could pledge? Our fortunes and our sacred honor. You see, what happens is men who have differences can come together and recognize where they share common views. Yes, committees of correspondence, committees of safety is what most of us would call them today. Yeah, they're very similar concepts. But let me just explain something to you. He's about ready to argue that the founders weren't united and didn't have the same goals, ideas, and whatever that third one was again, I forgot how he articulated it. But what he's trying to argue is that they didn't want anything in common. But in reality, when 57 men sign a document and pledge their life to the support of it, that's a model for liberty, bringing people together. Where we say, okay, we have a bunch of differences, here, maybe political differences, maybe social differences, and we come together on, yep, right, Terry, these principles, and we will die together in defense of these principles. We're willing to disagree and argue passionately on things we do disagree with, but these principles we're going to give our lives to defend. This is the hill we're going to die on. And in the liberty movement, we got to pick our hills. We got to pick our battles. And this guy is about to lie to us and tell us that the founders weren't united and that we shouldn't go around and say that the founders were united when they were. And the reason he's doing it is because he then wants to say in the liberty movement we're all not really united either. Right? So we should separate into our classes, class distinctions, so that socialism becomes the de facto rule of the day. Now listen, he keeps doing it. We'll keep breaking this nice bearded fellow down.
Would he be considered a founding father?
Yes, Samuel Adams was a founding father.
What about John Hancock? His prominent signature on the bottom of the Declaration of Independence has become so famous that his name is often used as a synonym for the word signature. Would he be considered a founding father?
Yes, sir.
The reason I ask is because none of these men signed the Constitution of the United States. In fact, Patrick Henry and Sam...
Okay. I love it. They didn't sign the Constitution, so they weren't united. First of all, the Declaration of Independence was a document of principles. The Constitution was a political document structuring a government, first. Number two, just because they didn't sign it doesn't mean they didn't approve it. He later will have to go on to admit that following the Constitutional Convention and following the debates of the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists and following the passage of the ratification bills in the multiple colonies, now multiple states, following that, even though they had a lot of disagreements politically, they agreed to the structure of the government. Now, some of them didn't, but we're going to get to that in just a second. But this idea that because someone might be considered a founding father and signed the Declaration of Independence, but didn't sign the Constitution of the United States, makes them not united, is absurd. Merlin, you're right. Founders differ from framers. Normally, framers refers to the people who ratified the Constitution. And that's how the Supreme Court, for example, uses the language. But the point is still the same, and his lie is still the same. Because his lie, he's sowing a divisive lie, and that is that these men were not united in their principles, and they were not united in the things that we want to go back to intellectually. We don't want to go backwards in history. We made a lot of great progress because of their experiment in human liberty. The experiment in self-government in America was a revolution that started long ago and has rolled forward. I'm really grateful for the advancements that we've made. And so nobody wants to go backwards in time when you study the founders. Like Jefferson says, the future's in the future, so we're going forward. But here's the point. You know who else didn't sign the Constitution of the United States? Thomas Jefferson didn't sign the Constitution of the United States. It wasn't because he didn't feel united with these other founders. Okay? Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, and John Adams are some of the most famous founders. But Jefferson who was, by the way, a colleague with Madison, who some argue was the architect of the Constitution and structure. Okay, Jefferson and Madison had an interesting relationship. You should look that up. And you should read some of the correspondence between those two men during the debates about the Constitution. And you'll see this fella, he's making a distinction so he can make a division, so he can cause you to lose faith or hope in the idea that liberty unites us. And, Alma, you're right. John Adams and Thomas Jefferson disagreed so passionately during their political lives. And they weren't friends for a long time during their political lives, but they resumed their friendship after their political lives were over. Yes, Lisa, that's true. Thank you for pointing that out. But let's keep going and watch this guy's sophistry for a second. We'll do more.
Samuel Adams were both very vocal in their opposition to the Constitution and were prominent leaders in the anti-federalist movement, arguing against that document. Although Samuel Adams, along with John Hancock, did eventually vote for ratification despite their deep misgivings, Patrick Henry remained one of the Constitution's staunchest critics.
Okay. Here's the deception, my friends. The deception is that if somebody disagrees with us, or if somebody is a critic, we can't find common ground to unite. That's just not true. And notice this tongue-in-cheek, well, even though he had serious misgivings, he went along with it. Yeah, because that's what responsible adult human beings do, is we unite in principle when it matters. And we put aside our differences when there are higher values at stake. And you do that by being authentic, and you do that by explaining your value judgments and sharing your value judgments, and you do that by then agreeing to prioritize one choice or one value over the other. And young people need to learn that more than any. But in our society, we call everyone names who disagrees with us. We call everyone names. We pigeonhole them to the point where we act like we can get along without our brothers and sisters. And this guy's doing that. He's creating class division. And what I would say to you is there is much to learn for all of us. And in the liberty movement, being a critic doesn't mean you're an enemy. I'll give you an example. I wasn't an enemy to the prosecutors in my case in United States versus Kerber. They may have seen me as an enemy. Matter of fact, one of them I know does see me as an enemy. But one of the prosecutors came up to me after trial, remember, and he said, Rick, how do you do this? He said, Mr. Kerber. And I said, look, I am critical of what you're doing because as a representative of the United States, you're not being fair, honest, you're not doing the right thing. And we have a forum in a courtroom that we both have agreed to come in here and resolve our differences. And I am buying into this system. So how do I do it? You and I can agree on the institution of liberty that best protects liberty when our interests are in conflict. And I'm going to use this system, and I'm going to use this process, and I'm going to beat you. Okay? I can be a critic. I can be in opposition to a person's position, but we can unite by both agreeing to respect the institution of liberty. That's what we're missing in this country. It's why our institutions are crumbling. We are pulling the foundation right out from under them because we're allowing these socialists to convince us that we're not united just because we have political disagreements or because we have disagreements on positions. So you got to be on the lookout for guys like this because they are not interested in you. They are interested in breaking down the foundation of our historical story regarding liberty.
Need more?
Yes.
Compare Thomas Jefferson's ideals and political philosophy to Alexander Hamilton's. Jefferson was a strong advocate for economic freedom and decentralized government power, whereas Hamilton was committed to high tariffs, other trade restrictions, centralized banking, and a strong central government, even a monarchy and European-style aristocracy. John Jay.
So I'm going to fast forward a little bit. Let me comment on this little thing here, and I'll just warn you and be a little careful. First of all, there is in my study, and I've studied a little, there is no one more worth studying their political ideas than Thomas Jefferson, and among that whole group. And so, if you want one takeaway from this, a lot of people say to me, Rick, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Well, here's one thing: pick up a copy of the book called The Real Thomas Jefferson. And if you need help getting it, I'll get it to you. And his political ideas are more influential in the founding era than any other single individual. And I could debate that with anybody who questions it, but I will tell you, I am convicted of that conclusion. I am convinced that is the case. So if you want to study someone, study Jefferson, and then try to study Hamilton, who was the most incoherent writer, one of the most incoherent writers among the founders. But nothing's wrong with Hamilton. He had different ideas, he had different opinions, he had different political loyalties. But that's my point. You see, we would go a long ways in the liberty movement to argue. Tara Lee, it's called the real Thomas Jefferson. Matter of fact, if you don't want to do that, I'll tell you another one. Some of you know this, and this is a shameless plug, but I had years ago I gave a series of lectures called the 13 Principles of Prosperity, and there's a student workbook that goes along with that. Some of you have that, and if you don't have that, it's okay. Those lectures are still available for free on SoundCloud, and I kind of distill Jefferson throughout those lectures, so you can go listen to those if you don't want to go pick up that book. But the real Thomas Jefferson is a great book. You don't want to use the word convicted, smiley face. Listen, brother, I want to be convicted for the truth's sake. I don't want to be wrongly convicted, and that's the distinction. To have conviction. How about this one? Remember the Yeats poem? You want a research project? Go research William Butler Yeats' poem, The Second Coming. You a faithful guy? Turning and turning in the widening gyres, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart, the center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed, the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best among us lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. Now there's a second, for those of you who are going, what in the world? Go look up a talk by Neil A. Maxwell called Behold the Enemy is Combined. Woo! Woo! No, is that the name of his talk? Yeah, I think that is the name of his talk. It should be 1992, 1993, maybe. Right around there. 5,000 Year Leap is a great book, Pat. My wife's grandfather wrote it. One of the very first books that exposed me to the liberty movement. So, yeah, I agree with you. So let's just conclude with this friendly neighborhood socialist and or anarchist. I think he probably called himself. I don't know. I'm guessing. But let's conclude with a couple obvious intellectual problems here.
Against having a Bill of Rights. He also celebrated the fact that Article 4, Section 2 of the Constitution granted slaveholders the constitutional authority to recapture runaway slaves who had escaped to the northern states. So, what in the world are constitutional conservative...
Okay, so pause for a second. I'm just going to put a placeholder here. We're going to beat up the whole racism of the founders in a future lecture. I will tell you, I had an interesting conversation with two of my sons not long ago. Some of you know that of my 8 children, 2 of my children are mixed race. And one of my sons and I had a great conversation recently about what that even means and what it means to me. And we ended up talking about American history and how people tell lies to judge and categorize other people so we don't listen to their ideas. You see, Jefferson was a brilliant political and social philosopher. And if you don't want people to read his social and political philosophy, he spread lies about what kind of man he was so that you can dissuade people to read from him. And that's what people do to this day. People say, hey, don't listen to Rick Kerber. Didn't you see he was accused of running a $100 million Ponzi scheme? And I can't believe how many people in the liberty movement are like, free Ammon Bundy, but stay away from Rick Kerber. And I'm like, well, you understand that the people who are making the lies and the arguments that are false against the Bundys, these are the same people who are telling that story about me too, right? And just like it's possible that prosecutors don't always get it right, in some cases, it's possible they don't get it right in my case. Yeah, and ad hominem is a subject that's a good topic for debate, Alma. It's when you don't want to argue the ideas, so you just pigeonhole the person. In my case, why don't you go look and see when the allegations began against me? Why did the allegations against me arise when they did? It didn't take a genius to figure that out. And you'll see, my friends, that the same tactics this guy's using against the founders are the same tactics people are using against me and you right here on this broadcast every night, where some people are trying to divide us and some people are trying to tell us that just because we have a difference of opinion on this issue or that issue, we cannot move together moving forward in liberty, and we can. Last thing. Here's the end of this guy's little clip.
It's talking about when they say we need to go back to what the Founding Fathers intended. Do they support the Constitution, or are they opposed to it? Do they uphold the institution of slavery, or do they side with the abolitionists? Are they on the side of strong, centralized government, or against it? For free trade restrictions, or for free markets? The founders of the United States came from diverse backgrounds and had very different, mutually exclusive ideas about the state and human rights. When someone tells you we need to do what the founders intended, the only reply is to ask, which one? And that's the backstory.
Okay, so this fellow, let's take a good look at him one more time. This fellow, okay, he is either deceived, misled, okay, or a deceiver, a misleader. I don't know which one it is. I don't know him. He is not telling the truth. And I could forgive the whole lecture except for that last statement. And let's just listen to it one more time. And I'll stop right where it's at. See if you can recognize the one thing that he knows is false. Or he's so misled or deceived that it's not worth listening to him anymore.
For free markets. The founders of the United States came from diverse backgrounds and had very different, mutually exclusive ideas about the state and human rights.
Did you catch it? Did you catch it? What was the lie? And evidently a lie. And it's the lie they tell about us, about me and you, and about this group, the hundreds of people that are watching this video tonight, the thousands that will watch it over the next 24 hours. What's the lie? I don't know if he's a deceiver. He could be deceived. I don't know. I don't know what's in his heart. But I know it's self-evidently a lie, what he just said. Who sees it? If you can't see it, you got to wake up and turn your brain on. Because in this army, we're building for liberty. It doesn't matter whether we're fighting in the courtroom for Am and Bundy or whether we're fighting anywhere else for the cause of liberty. We got to learn how to see it. Jill, who are you? Jill, you win the award for the day. David, you're second place. Who is Jill? Do I know you? Do we know each other, Jill? Where'd you go? Where'd you go? Jill. Where's Jill? I'm looking. I'm looking for it. I'm looking to see if... Well, suffice it to say, I'm impressed. I'm trying to learn this technology, Jill. Let's see. How about this? Hey, Jill, you want to come on board here? I sent you an invitation if you're interested. Anybody. Now, don't be bashful. I just invited Jill to join us. Let's see if it works. I need a little Jeopardy music, Jewel. Oh, it says it's connecting. Look at that. Awesome.
I do not want to be on camera if you would turn it away, but...
You don't want to be on the camera?
I am in Texas.
Well, welcome. You win the Brain On Award of the day. That is awesome. So you saw it. You saw it was mutually exclusive.
And now I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. You can't hear me at all?
I can hear you a little bit.
Okay. How did you know? What is it about the phrase mutually exclusive? How did you know that was the lie?
Because that's what they use when they separate us.
That's right.
There is one goal that our founders had, and that was liberty for all, not excluding anybody.
I am so pleased to hear you explain that so succinctly. Thank you. That is exactly right. That is exactly right. Thanks for chiming in. Thanks for being on here tonight, Jill.
Thank you.
Yeah. I don't know if y'all could hear it very good. That was our first experiment with bringing somebody on live. But Jill's exactly right. You see, that's the lie. You know it's self-evidently true because if they sign a Declaration of Independence together, or if they participate in the ratification debates and they agree with the Constitution, even though they have differences, then clearly their views aren't mutually exclusive. In other words, there are some differences we have, but it doesn't make our fundamental beliefs mutually exclusive. And if we build together on those fundamental beliefs, it is powerful, my friends. And that's my invitation to you. We can build the liberty movement by seeing these nonsensical sophistries and dismissing them for what they are. Because just because we might have some disagreements, the things that unite us are much stronger than those disagreements if we're focused on principles and we're focused on the fundamentals. And Jill got it right. She wins the Free Capitalist Brain On Award of the night. I don't know what that is, but at least it's the acknowledgement that I thought Jill's brain was on. So, all right. Well, with that said, guys, I'll answer any questions you have for me tonight, and then we'll call it a night. I'm under the hour mark, so my goal is here to end in under the hour. So that was my thought for the day. I wanted to make this point that we can be united in the cause of liberty, and it takes work, and it takes tuning in and sharing some intellectual time together, and doing this on a nightly basis is part of that. We're building a great community, reviving to some extent some of an old community, and uniting some communities together that have never associated with each other. So, Brad, I don't know what the busy signal or tone on and off is. Let's see. Alma asks, is it possible that they differed on their ideas of human rights? Well, if you're talking about the men who signed the Declaration of Independence, Alma, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. No, their ideas of human rights is the individualism, the fundamental source of human rights that they actually all united on. Human rights, liberty is the first human right. Well, after life. Work unions seem to be part of the liberal socialist playbook. Why is that? Well, because the goal of the socialists politically, the informed activist socialists politically, is to divide the proletariat from the bourgeois elite. In other words, the poor people from the managers and the rich people. And if you can keep those people divided, there's more poor people than rich people. So if you're not rich and you don't have power, but you want to go up against the powerful, if you can break people into these classes and then unite the proletariat, the working people, the working unions, against the moneyed interest and convince them that they don't have anything in common. They call it labor and management or labor and capital. If you can spread that misinformation, then what you do is you raise whole generations of people who view managerial people and executive people and stock owners as suspect and mean and wrong. In our day, we would call them the one percenters. And, that's one of the reasons they've targeted the working unions. Now, I come from a family of people whose lives were very blessed by membership in unions, and not because they wanted to be socialists or communists, but because they got, in a situation where their life and livelihood was only being served by a workers' union. It would be possible for free people to work together and to unite and form an association to bargain and advocate and contract and not be socialistic or communistic. It's possible, and so unionizing in theory is not. There's nothing wrong in principle with that, but in practicality, that was kind of how the socialists, from about the 1880s through to about the 1930s, it's how the socialists and the communists worked in America. And then after that, from the 1930s to the 1970s, you get kind of the culmination of the Saul Alinsky style activists where they're doing the same kind of thing. Michael, I don't know if that answers your question, but let me do this. Jewel just asked me a good question. Let me see. Oh, you were addressing Alma's question. Well, James, if you and Alma are going to debate on here, we all get sucked down that rabbit hole. I've watched how some of those debates go. Speak about the Bundy treatment, please. As far as I can tell, there's no news to report or update. I know that Ammon wasn't in court today because he's still not willing to assent to the demands being put on him by the marshals. But in terms of their physical treatment, I'm unaware of any new news or new information, Nita. Let's see. Hi, Debbie. And Debbie, thank you, by the way. Cheyenne, getting our own house in order first really struck me the other night. Absolutely. Liberty means nothing if it doesn't start with our own mind and our own ideas, and then among the people we live, with the people we live in our households, our own families and households. If we're not united there in liberty, if we're not using liberty there, if we're not living by principle there, there is no foundation for liberty in society. And the fruit, the happiness that comes from liberty is served in the home first, and in the relationships between adults who live together. And so that is absolutely essential. Let's see. Yeah, Terry, he was not in court. Nope. Okay, so I was going to see if Kelly wanted to come on board. Kelly, you want to give this a try? How do I find you here? Make a comment so I can click on your name if you're back. We got like 2 minutes before the hour's up, Kelly. Come on, take a talk. Thanks, David. I'm glad it was worth it for you. I'm glad you found value. Okay, Kelly, you got 10-second warning. T-minus 10 seconds. If you don't use PayPal, what other sources there to send the funds? If you want to make a donation to the legal team. Drop me an email. You can go to freecapitalist.com and click on the link there to drop me an email. Or if you want to go to bundydefense.com, you'll see Morgan's email at the bottom. You can drop him an email. We'll help you do that. All right. She signed off. All right. Kelly signed off. Signed off again. All right, guys. Well, keep your brain on. All the best to you. Thank you for joining us tonight. Please spread the word. Plan on doing something a little different and unusual tomorrow. That'll be fun, too. Very educational. We'll also keep you informed on what's going on with the guys and any of the developments down here in Nevada. So from the Free Capitalist Mobile Command Bunker here in Las Vegas, Nevada, wish you all the best. Thank you. I love you. I love the people who love liberty. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for the support. Thanks for being part of this wonderful community.